The first thing I want to say is I've had too much on my plate lately, and yet, there's times you just have to get up in the morning and have a few words. There's a couple things that have been on my mind that I want to get off my chest this morning. Yesterday, I'm pleased to say, holy cow, thank you. This is a huge crowd already. Thank you so much. Yesterday, I'm pleased to say I at about what time was it? I just lay down for a second on the couch. I closed my eyes, and the next thing I knew, my alarm was going off. I was just so tired, and, I'd mentioned it. Let me know if the sound's coming through okay. I'm not seeing any hearts, everybody. Let's see some hearts. Where are the hearts? There's a few. Holy cow, why are there so many today? Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And please confirm that there's some hearts. Thank you. Please confirm that the sound is okay. If you're hearing me good, you know how things are. My USB cables sometimes don't like to read my audio the way they should, but well, I guess nobody's complaining yet, so I'll just keep going. But yesterday I just mentioned that hello, Lefty Prof. Good, thank you. So yesterday I just lay down for a quick little nap, and I wrote about it, and somebody said that they said a couple different creators had said they just lay down for a quick nap, and they said you're all working so hard, and it was such a kind thing for people to say, and it kind of made me aware. It's like we're doing so much work, and especially like these last couple weeks, everything's been so hard, and excuse me, it's becoming unreal. But today I sat down and I wrote this. I'm going to read this. So I get up in the morning and I just cranked that out. And part of it was because of something Cindy had written. She'd written it in her comments. And it occurs to me, I've been working through the white supremacy indoctrination, that's part of American culture. I've been working through it for the last, we've been working through it all our lives. When I was little and you're a kid and your authority figures or your parents or your teachers, they start lying. They start lying to you. Hold on, let me see this. I want you to yell at Dr. Eric. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll tell him to stop driving while he's unalive. Okay. Thank you for that, Lefty Prof. Thank you, Yolanda. That's so nice. We fight white supremacy all our lives. And I remember as a child growing up being, I had asthma. I couldn't breathe because I felt that pressure. And I couldn't eat at school because I felt that pressure. And I essentially wanted to be kind, and we're constantly punished for being kind in this culture. And as I talk about it, I know a lot of people feel resentful when you mention it. Because we're all indoctrinated. I'm indoctrinated too. I don't mean that as an attack or a criticism on people. I want to empower you. And there's a part of this. There's a part of this where we have to recognize so many of the assumptions we have about life. So many of the assumptions we have about life are just incorrect, and they've been put into us against our will by white supremacists to enable and empower white supremacists. Just today, I had an argument. Well, not an argument, but this guy was getting into my comments, and because I'd written about how millionaires, if we just stopped financially supporting millionaires, a lot of our problems would go away. And this guy's like, "Well, wealth isn't evil." I was like, "Yes, wealth is evil. Keep repeating it." And he's just like, ludicrous, muted, and that unwillingness to even engage the possibility that wealth is evil is indoctrinated to people from when you're a child. And so it makes us to the point where we don't even challenge it and we don't even recognize it. I keep thinking too, like the other day, these arguments were up against the thing that I want to make it empowering. Always the point of empowerment is this. Today, I am able to speak openly about white supremacy. I've been writing about it from the whole time I was on Medium. I often publish articles I wrote 4 or 5 years ago. I'm glancing at the comments as I do this. Sometimes it distracts me a little, so I have to look away. But thank you for your lovely, lovely comments. I've been writing about white supremacy for years. Often you have to hide the message. You have to disguise it. You have to write it so people have an awareness that something's wrong. I publish a lot of articles I wrote 4 or 5 years ago. They get better response than they ever have. They're more relevant now than is that the right word? Than they've ever been. And the more important thing is people are willing to listen. Yesterday on the live I had with Nick and Elizabeth Raven in Venezuela, we were just mentioned the entire military. We spend the amount we spend on the military, the $1 trillion. The US police force would be the third largest police force in the world. I mean, and I respect the people who are in the military and who sacrifice to protect the country. I respect them. At the same time, the obscene amount of money that we spend on the military is a part of white supremacy. I wrote an article a few days ago, about standing up to bullies. Actually, that might have gone out this morning. The one about standing up to bullies. Um, and ultimately, white supremacists have it in their head. They like this false worldview where they consider themselves perfect without ever having to prove it or achieve anything or be accomplished. They think of themselves as perfect. And so an aspect of that, a consequence of that is they do not want to be in any form of competition. And you see this perfectly represented with the current skid mark, I'll call him, in the Oval Office, who deflects and denies. He always is willing to bully, but what he's very effective at. And people mistakenly, they say, well, he's a marketing expert. They say all this nonsense. He's none of those things. He's a liar and a cheat. And what he does is he deflects from positions of accountability by being a bully. He just refuses to ever prove any kind of capacity because the guy literally has no capacity. And the reason he's so capable of slithering out of situations where he might have to actually prove himself is because he's so without merit. And anybody, again, I keep saying, we have all these silver spoon Democrats who have never had to stand up to a bully. And they keep trying to, the people that come at you, at some point in your life, you recognize when these people come at you for no reason, you're just sitting there doing nothing. They come at you, they start attacking you, they start telling you you're worthless, they do all these things. It's the reflection of them. And we can't subject our children to that kind of treatment. And in addition to subjecting our children to that kind of treatment, our children get indoctrinated by our culture, by our traditions, by our schools, by our politics, by our media, to be enablers of that, to accept it. They learn all the arguments. And that's what caused that guy the other day to tell me I was being ludicrous by saying that wealth is evil. We need to just say it. Wealth is evil. We cannot have freedom until everybody in our society has the same economic power. Freedom can't exist unless everybody has the same economic power. We have to understand that if we want to be a nation of freedom, we have to understand we have to protect everybody. This is a fundamental shift. And again, me being able to say this right now to 374 people, thank you, all the people for showing up, is a massive change from even 4 months ago. I probably couldn't have said this. 4 months ago, I wouldn't have had so many people willing to absorb that message. But I've said before in some of my articles, white supremacy targets our kids. It targets our kids in our schools, and I'm an educator. I went into education to change some things that I saw were wrong. And I mean, I'm not being critical of public education is vital. White supremacy attacks it. But they attack everything like a cancer. So there's a lot of systems that are good systems that have this cancer of white supremacy that we have to surgically remove. And that is the task that is before us. It's never been more obvious than now. But I mean, part of it, like the entitlement culture. I talked about this guy who, the day after the Super Bowl, he goes on Facebook and with a red background, he mentions how much he disliked the Bad Bunny concert. And then I started pressing him. It's like, well, how do you like the fact that, this current regime is engaging in genocide and it has a secret police that's breaking into houses, murdering people in the street, abducting kids, sending them to detention centers. And he started in with his, well, I don't want to be political. I just want to, that's such an example of white supremacy because they say something with this smug little freaking attitude. Oh, I'm allowed to just make a comment about the music. I'm just talking about music. It has nothing to do with politics. And then he mentions the Bad Bunny concert and how much he didn't like it. I just call them out. And we have to become more accustomed. It's like you are repeating a white supremacy argument. That is a white supremacy argument. And of course, what they will respond is they'll say, well, you're calling me a racist, or they instantly pivot to that grievance, expecting to leverage our reluctance to engage in conflict. People are conflict averse. Bullies do the same thing, but the other side of that is, well, now you're saying this. And it's like, now you're the bully and you're doing this to me. And we have to as quickly as possible, change our approach to the world. Let's see some hearts, people. I'm not seeing any hearts. It gets me excited when I see all the hearts. I'm seeing all the wonderful people there. It says 374. I'm seeing the comments come through, but let's see. There's a few more hearts. Let's see some hearts. We have to change our approach. And what is critical is we have to go back all the way. And this is why white supremacy has been so effective because they install it at such a young age and they make people think that these things are just human nature and it's not the evil of white supremacy. They justify themselves. You see so many people who say things like, it's always been like that, or people have always suppressed other people. They make all these deflective, other countries have the same problem, all these deflections and denials. And once you just give yourself permission to call out people, I've been doing it often, the people that are anti reproductive health care. I tell them that's a white supremacy position. That's a position of control over women. It kills people. It's cruel. It's torture. You are advocating white supremacy. Well, no. And then they get all mad and they might cry. You can't back down because if you back down, you condemn women to die bleeding out in agony in hospital parking lots. So call the pro-life, which is a misnomer, movement, a white supremacy movement. You have to call them that. But I'm gonna go through this list that I wrote again. I was just jotting down some ideas of like kind of an action plan. Maybe this will be a historical document one day. Although I say that with, in jest because there's so many other people working on this problem. We've been working on this problem for a long time. And what you get from me is like a kind of coming to realizations in real time and understanding about what's going on. But I have had a lot of people who when I mention it's like your kids are getting indoctrinated with white supremacy at schools, and people will ask, it's like, well, how is that happening? And they'll be concerned. And what can we do to fix it? And yeah, it's a big concern as a parent. But there's a lot you can do because white supremacy knows that it has to hide. It has to not come out into the light because once people recognize it, they reject it. And that's natural. This ideology of cruelty. And this is why. I mean, white supremacy is the reason why billionaires exist. Wealth is a consequence of white supremacy. It goes back to the plantation era. Being above the law is a consequence of white supremacy. This is why the Republicans say that they're for law and order when they really mean they're for using the power of the government to inflict punishment on the groups that they don't want. They themselves consider themselves exempt. They consider themselves above the law. And it's once you start recognizing this whole dialogue that's in our culture and how many things are said normally every day, how many Republican arguments are made to enable and justify and continue white supremacy, the more equipped we are to combat them. But it really does. I mean, part of the reason everybody right now is so exhausted, like I started this off by saying, it was exhausting. I'm constantly tired. It's because we've been groomed and indoctrinated and conditioned to believe all these white supremacy narratives, and they steal our power from us. They make us incapable of responding, and that's why we feel frustrated. That's why we bite our tongue rather than say what needs to be said. And we are in a moment of cultural realignment. It is a cultural awakening. People are sick and tired of it. We're sick and tired of looking at the news and seeing stories of millionaires committing these horrible atrocities against kids. Yesterday, when I picked up my daughter from school, she said that they'd been talking, her and her friends, her peer group, had been talking about a rumor that they'd heard, and it was just a rumor. I mean, this is a school rumor. But the things that kids hear and what they talk about create trauma, and that trauma is real. And what my daughter said was, she said that they'd said that these billionaires were sharing messages about eating babies. And then one of them said the detail that they shared was that a baby, if they're young enough, they taste like cream cheese. And this is what my daughter had heard somewhere. Whether this originated in the Epstein files, whether it's just a horror story or a horror show, I don't know. It's awful. She didn't even ask me if I knew it was true. I couldn't have answered if she had asked me that. But the reality is, we live in a time where such a horrific story is credible. And it's pretty difficult in a period like this to have people continue to defend billionaires when we have this evidence. Ellie Leonard put it the other day. She said, wealth messes people up and makes them awful. And so we have to just remove so much of what we've been groomed and indoctrinated to think. I'm not seeing more people join in. Is this, write some comments if you're in. I don't know if I'm just having a slowdown in my live chat, but everybody came all at once. That was wonderful. But, maybe it's just a technical glitch. Sometimes these things happen. Hopefully, you're all still there. Hopefully, this is still growing. But, yeah, I had this huge mass of people come in at first, and then the numbers haven't changed. So hopefully we're not having an issue. But anyway, I wanna go through this list that I wrote this morning. I wanna interact more, but people aren't writing comments. So let me go through this list. There's somebody. Somebody says, "I think something is wrong with Substack." Okay, Nancy, but are you still hearing me okay? Just confirm that you're hearing me and that you're able to leave comments. It seems all right. As I go through this, number one, yeah, maybe they just are censoring me because they don't want me to share this stuff that is becoming more and more obvious. But holy cow, just the title brought so many people in immediately. Well, I mean, if for some reason you can't hear me, hopefully you can hear it in the replay. So the number one thing I wrote in my list is that how to stop white supremacy indoctrination. Number one, we have to acknowledge that white supremacy exists. And that's a big part of it. A lot of people just simply continue in this persistent state of denial where they claim, it's been attended already and they just disregard, but it's all part of it. Remember, white supremacists exist in camouflage. They deny themselves, they deflect. They are the most evil people. They are constantly on the offensive. They attack you. They will accuse you of the most horrific things you can imagine and then go home and perform the same acts they just accused you of. It's not me, it's you. You're doing it, they say. And decent people are susceptible to this. Decent people don't want to be told or accused of horrible things. They're appalled by the horrors of the world. And there's many, many more of us. There's many, many more good people than evil people. So just take that into your heart and know it. So number two, I wrote, acknowledge that white people are susceptible to becoming white supremacists. I envision a future in which we are teaching people about the evils of white supremacy. That should be day one of school. We should be teaching our children what the traits and characteristics of white supremacy are so that they don't fall victim to it, so that they don't enable it. Instead, what we do is we deny and deflect, and we pretend it's not there. We all live with this elephant in the room, and the smart kids know. And the smart kids know that something is wrong. Everybody knows that something is wrong. Thanks. I'm seeing the hearts now, so thank you. Everybody knows that something is wrong, so we need to change our philosophy for education. We need to get to that point where people see. White people are susceptible to this toxic mind virus of white supremacy. We have to treat it almost as like an addiction. And from our earliest days of school, we have to recognize it and we have to obliterate it. You're right. And Lisa Smith just said, not only white people. It's part of the American cultural identity. When I talked to Zuri Stevens, she said the same thing Lisa Smith said. When I've talked to Will Fullwood, Zuri Stevens is a racialized black woman. Will Fullwood is a racialized black man. And he says, too, so much of what we're taught as just like basic reality is actually this white supremacy message. An example that'll make that a little more clear is like the idea of the lost cause narrative. How many people do you know out there who will sit there and try to say that the South was somehow honorable or that they were fighting for states' rights? All of that is a white supremacy narrative. It's a lie because the Confederate South, okay, people can't seem to comment, but they can hear. So as long as that's working, that's good. Maybe we're just overloading. We're overloading. Yeah, the elephant is the GOP. Well said, Bees Freepers. The comments are coming back now, so thank you. But yes, the lost cause narrative is a lie. The Confederate South, there's nothing redeeming about them. They were awful, awful, awful people. They tried to create a nation based on the right to enslave human beings. It's the most disgusting thing that ever happened. They should be shamed. Their descendants should be ashamed of what they did. They should spend the rest of their lives trying to fix and provide reparations for all the pain they caused. And yet, a large part of the United States, a large part of the high school classes, history high school classes in the United States, will teach the lost cause narrative that will pretend that there was honor and fighting for states' rights, which is just complete nonsense. The Civil War is about slavery. I mean, that's it. Full stop. And so many people deny it. Go read the articles of secession, the letters of secession from the seceding states. They mention slavery in them. It's pretty obvious. So, yes, so many things though. And it's like, but that's just passively out there. And that's just one example. There are thousands of examples. This idea that people will hurt others, that people are inclined to do harm is a white supremacy narrative. People aren't inclined to do harm. People are inclined to care for each other. We're inclined to help each other out. And what white supremacy does is it lives in your mind And it perverts your sense of logic and reason and your vision of objective reality and makes you so you do not listen to the yearnings of your own heart. That's actually how it works. And you see people with the spare the rod and spoil the child type nonsense. And that might be, hi, Karen. That might be a person who doesn't want to strike their child, who doesn't want to inflict harm on their child. But because but because they've been indoctrinated or they've been infected with the white supremacy virus, they convince themselves that they must inflict pain on their child for some greater later good. And it's all a lie. It's all a white supremacy lie. And there's millions and millions and millions of examples. And once you start recognizing it, once you realize how prevalent it is, I was talking to King Ray Vet the other day, and he mentioned, he's like, it's everywhere. And and it truly is. Every aspect of American culture has been intoxicated with white supremacy lie. And all we have to do is just stop these arguments. Our conscious minds are not us, we are our hearts. And the example I use for that is you are able to use like the rules of grammar. You just use them without thinking. It comes from something internal. We internalize things. And this is where the danger is. We want to act with kindness. Our hearts yearn for that. And there's a part of us that's instinctive, an instinctive response. Most of the choices I've made in my life, hi, Amber, most of the choices I've made in my life have the more important choices have come from just following my heart and not listening to my mind, not sitting down and making a list. I've just said, where does my heart tell me to go? And I've gone there. And we can become better at listening to our heart. Our minds are there to help program our heart, but it takes time. And this is where the real danger of white supremacy is, because they indoctrinate kids with it before they are developed, before kids have become fully formed adults. And so they're afraid of authority. We're programmed by evolution to need authority because we're basically helpless as children. So as kids, you listen to the adult and you want to please the adult. And when the adult tells you lies in that situation to innocent children, there's no greater betrayal. And we've seen it today with the Epstein files, how willing these billionaires and these politicians and political donors and people in positions of authority are willing to abuse children. And we can't look away from that. We can't deny it. That's the threat that's out there. And that's why we all have to stop biting our tongue when we come across a white supremacy argument. Whether you're sitting around at the dinner table with your family, whether you're out for having a beer with your friends, if somebody starts in with their pro-Republican bullshit, you have to call them out as being white supremacists. Say it. The argument, one of the most prevalent arguments out there, you hear people saying, well, this has always been a Christian nation. And that's one of their dog whistles. Quite often, white supremacists will substitute the word Christianity for white supremacy. Again, Christianity has been defiled by white supremacy. There are good people who practice Christianity, and they should be speaking up about the fact that white supremacists have defiled their sacred religion, and they use it as cover to inflict their ideology of evil. When people say this has always been a Christian nation, it's clearly false. You look at history, that is absolutely not the case. But the United States has always been a white supremacy nation. That's why they're substituting the words. They do this kind of thing all the time when they talk about underage women instead of children. They talk about child prostitutes instead of victims of horrific child abuse and rape. This is how white supremacy communicates. It deflects and denies and sanitizes everything it says. But the good point about this is, when they say there's a war on Christianity, that too is a lie. But there is a war on white supremacy. I'm in that war. All of you in this chat today are in that war too. And I want to empower you and continue to empower you to become more effective soldiers in this necessary and ongoing war against white supremacy. And part of the thing is we have to protect our kids because they try to use our inherent evolutionary need to please authority figures as children before we have developed and become fully formed adults. They leverage that. White supremacists leverage that to attack kids. That's why they constantly attack. Correct, Lisa. I mean, that's what I said. These horrific phrases white supremacists use, like child prostitutes, instead of saying that children are being raped and abducted and murdered by these freaking white supremacy billionaire assholes who think they're above the law. You are absolutely right. And every time people use language like that, you're right to call it out. So thank you for doing so again. Yeah. And Amber was saying, that moral development. And you're at a disadvantage in the United States because at every turn throughout our schools, and white supremacists attack education. They use voucher plans to take money away from education. They blame experts. They try science denial. We're having an outbreak of measles because white supremacists don't want people educated. We've seen a drop in the literacy rate. All of this is because we need a baseline of ignorance for white supremacy to flourish. But all they can do is can create the situation for white supremacy to flourish. And then if we just stand up to it, a big part of that is that we're all indoctrinated from the beginning that it's impolite, it's normalized for us to say nothing. We have to change that. All right. Number 3 on my list here is to understand the lies of white supremacy are camouflaged. They're everywhere and they're camouflaged. The example of that, again, that guy who the day after the Super Bowl was complaining about Bad Bunny, and then he tried to say that he wasn't making a political statement. That's bullshit. And he's going to sit there and be insistent, and he might get tearful, but he is making a political statement. He's supporting white supremacy, and we have to call that out. 4, white supremacy requires wealth inequality, and we're seeing that, and this government is imposing that on everybody. This is an inept government that is deliberately trying to undermine our economy. People are getting fired. They're devaluing the dollar. They're trying to put every single one of us against the wall with our back against the wall so they can further fortify an ideology of white supremacy. A lot of what's going on right now is this white fear because they recognize that in 10, 15, or 20 years, white people are going to be a minority. Thank God in the United States, they're going to be a minority. So we're seeing William Spivey I had him on for a wonderful talk a couple weeks ago, and he said they're trying to set the stage for apartheid. They want to have a small ruling class of white people who control and dominate everybody else. And when you look at it, we're 90% of the way there already. Look at the representation in the government. It's mostly white people. Look at who has all the wealth. It's mostly white people. So they've established largely already a white supremacy and apartheid government here in the United States. And we have to fight against it with all of our force because it is going to be bad for everybody. But they're deliberately right now, they're overreaching. They're pushing so hard for this economic collapse. It's hurting everybody at this time. I still feel confident we're going to win, but this will be ongoing. After this time, we will need public schools that teach the dangers of white supremacy, teach children how to avoid being groomed to become white supremacists. Number 5, white supremacy requires ignorance. Yes, it's a science denial ideology. Because if you trust your eyes and ears, you undermine everything about white supremacy. I challenge anybody in the government right now to any kind of competition. I'd beat them in any kind of competition. These are the most worthless people in our whole society in this current regime running these things. But we've been so indoctrinated to just bow down to white supremacy and authoritarian power and patriarchal authority. We just let them take the reins of power. We just allowed them to steal it. And I still feel that the Democrats allowed that election to be stolen. That's my perspective. I think there's plenty of white supremacists among the Democrats too. How could there not be? We've just talked about it. Everybody in our society, no matter, what other identity you claim as your own, we're all indoctrinated with this. It comes at us against our will. They groom us. They put it in our minds without our permission or consent. And it takes a really long time to overwork that, undo that, unlearn the lies that you've been told. My wife brought it up the other day, how I spent my 10 years in South America detoxifying myself, purging myself. And even now I still have so many things to learn. So please, don't take what I'm saying as an attack. Please, please. I'm here to help you. And we can have this as an ongoing process. If you've got an open, as Will says, if you have an open heart and an open mind, we can move forward, and bit by bit, things will become more clear to you. You go from that point of frustration and desperation, and you start to recognize time is going to continue to pass. I can make deliberate actions every day to make myself a little bit better. It's like training for a marathon. On day 1, you think this isn't possible. On day 90, you complete the course. It doesn't seem possible. Just stay the course. Keep coming back. I love all you people. I love all of you people for being here. I understand how hard this is. And yeah, we're all learning. I'm learning too. I make mistakes too. I hope I'm an example of that, where I express accountability for my mistakes when I make them. All you wonderful readers provide comments that guide me and tell me what kind of things I need to focus on and talk about. And we're peeling back the layers and we're gaining more and more power. But yes, our end goal here is it's not just to install some Democrat as, it's not just to win back the Senate this year. And how many months away are we from the primaries now? 9? It's not just that. And it's not just to win the presidency. We need to get to the point where every public school is teaching our children how to reject the indoctrination and the grooming of white supremacy because they attack our kids. They attack our kids. Please be aware that they're attacking your kids. This is so important. We have to keep coming back, keep talking. We all together will collectively rise. That's the whole point. All right. So white supremacy requires ignorance. They want you ignorant. They celebrate ignorance. This is why, my wife often points out how sports stars are revered in the United States and academics are disregarded and ignored. They're still like quoting Logan Paul. Is that his name? The guy who just got destroyed. I think the guy who beat him in the boxing match was Anthony Joshua. I hope that's why are they quoting the guy who got beat? Quote the guy who defeated him. Well, they don't like the race of the guy who defeated him, so they keep deferring to the white guy. It's just everywhere. This white supremacy. It's like, why are we quoting billionaires? What the hell do billionaires know? It's like, don't come to me for a quote on health. Go talk to a doctor. They're out there. We have doctors who are out there. And then we get the same imbeciles who are offering their opinions on every conceivable subject. And then we just deny the ability of intelligent people, educated people, accomplished people to have their say. Substack has changed that largely because you can reach out to experts. It's so wonderful to have this opportunity to talk to people who actually know what they're talking about, who can give you actionable information. But again, we've all been normalized to just accept that we have to endure this white supremacy narrative, this white supremacy BS. And we don't. We can shake it off. We think all these things are normal, but we don't have to submit to having the same, like watching the Olympics. They spend more time showing the absurd pontifications of these newscasters instead of just showing the athletes perform. Why do they always divert the lens away from the people of true accomplishment and merit to these people that are unworthy of our attention? That's white supremacy. We don't have to tolerate it. We don't have to put up with it anymore. Bit by bit, it takes 2% of the population or 3%, quickly doubles, we'll take over, we'll win. 6, white supremacy requires obedience to authority. And that's another issue. That's just this underlying problem. They want absolute, unquestioned obedience. Because if you start challenging them, they crumple because they have nothing. They have no abilities. They have no skills. So they want us constantly on our heels. They put us constantly in check. The article I wrote today is, when I finally stood up to a bully, I'm like, fine, come at me. I'll fight you back. You might win, but I'm going to hurt you if you come at me. The guy just walked away. And the reason is a fight, too, is a contest. It's a competition. It's a means of exposing them for the frauds that they are. These are the ultimate deceivers. White supremacists are the ultimate deceivers. They're complete frauds. They're completely worthless. And that we cower away from them is the exact wrong thing. They've learned this bully culture. They've learned to intimidate, but they have no value or merit or ability or skills other than that. And all we have to do is pierce that bubble and they collapse because they are so weak. They are fundamentally the weakest human beings in all of society, the cruelest, They are so weak that they have to rape children to feel strong. And that's ultimately white supremacy is everything that's bad right now. We have to fight back about. We have to protect our children against the encroachments of these vile people. We have to stop pretending it isn't happening. 7, recognize that children are targeted to be groomed into white supremacists. They create their victims every day. They create a new nation of victims. We are a nation of victims of white supremacy. Why are we working so hard when other people get their billions for free? There's classes out there. Look at the guy who owns Tesla. He gets billions and billions of dollars from government subsidies. Why do I have to work so hard, scrounging and fighting? Why isn't the government supporting people like me who try to advocate for kindness and reason and a better, more prosperous world for all? Why isn't the government doing that? Instead, they're supporting these monstrous people. There's always government money for hate speech, never government money for kindness. That's what we need to change. That's what makes white supremacy allowed to endure in this country. I said that. Recognize children are targeted to be groomed. 8, we must equip our children with the ability to recognize the threat and tactics of white supremacy. I've been doing that with the stories I write to my kids. Again, it seems like the comments are off. I was getting comments there for a minute. I guess it's glitchy today. I hope the sound is still coming through loud and clear. I'll do it again. I got this outline right here. I can read this every single day. This is important things. This is the fight of our time, everybody. This is the battle of our time. How do we protect our children against the encroachments of white supremacists? Because those child abusers in the Epstein files are still active. They're still out there. They're targeting kids. And it's not just the ones that are child traffickers and then everybody's fine. There is a sequence. There's all along that. Some of them do different things, they do different strategies, but it's in your community. It's at the school where you send your kids today. It's all these normalized things that we have been told that we can't ever speak out against or up against. It's all out there, and we have to start seeing it. We have to allow ourselves to see it. Have to start allowing ourselves to speak against it. The Pledge of Allegiance is part of it because they threw under God in there. The Pledge of Allegiance, it's offensive. It's written by a xenophobic, I forget the whole story about this guy. He just wanted to sell flags. There's no value in the Pledge of Allegiance. It's an advertisement. We shouldn't be forcing our kids to say that. It's disgusting. All right, the tactics. And then I wrote down 16 tactics. 16 tactics for helping our kids. This is just brainstorming, but it's pretty good, actually, for helping our kids recognize and have the armor they need to deflect and keep them invulnerable, to vaccinate them. We've got to vaccinate our kids against white supremacy. Number 1, the tactics, what I'm saying is the tactics of grooming our kids are, number 1, arguments that it is okay to be wealthy. It is not. We have to recognize that this extreme wealth, this obscene wealth, we need an equitable society. Everybody needs to have the same. Everybody needs to have their needs met. We don't live in a society of merit. We don't reward people of merit. We reward cruel people. We reward white supremacists. That has to go away. A white supremacist can slide right over to the presidency, accomplish people who've actually had to work for a living, who've actually had to achieve things, who've stood up for the rights of others. They are denied entry by the gatekeepers. We have to dismantle that. So any argument that it's okay to be wealthy, you have to stop saying. You have to stop repeating that. It's not okay. They need to be helping us. Their wealth is a consequence of human suffering. We have to stop human suffering. Another argument of white supremacy is the argument that poor people are lazy or otherwise deserving of their state of destitution. This is one of the arguments white supremacists use to dehumanize people. This is how they step aside from their yearning of their heart to see their fellow humans, to recognize their fellow humans, and instead see them as objects that they can exploit and abuse and torture and murder and eat, So any of these arguments that people are poor because it's somehow their fault, we have to stop allowing people to say. We have to stop allowing that to proliferate. We have to stop the idea that any nation is superior to any other. The United States, they settle on this. They use that as their justifications for attacking and exploiting and murdering citizens of other nations. That has to stop. We have to be the ones who stop that. This nation is not superior, nor is any other. Human beings, we are all part of a collective. This idea we spend so much on the military like a bully force. That's why they do it, because white supremacists are afraid to enter any contest that they haven't rigged, which again goes back to the 2024 election. And so that's why we spend so much money on the military, so the United States can be a bully in the world. It's offensive and it's wrong, and it has to be stopped. 4, the insistence on teaching sanitized version of history. They teach our kids lies. I should just say that, teaching the lies. I have to teach the truth about the atrocities this country has committed, the truth about the evils of white supremacy. We have to teach our children the consequence of adopting the white supremacy mind virus and how it destroys your life and the life of all the people around you. Once we do that, our kids will be able to more easily reject it. But it's normalized right now, so kids are tempted to believe, especially since we place wealth on a pedestal and we justify anything that was done to achieve that wealth, disregarding all the illegal things. Again, that's the sanitized version of history. We just disregard the facts. 5, white supremacists always offer the false excuse the true history will make kids feel bad about themselves. Kids will feel far worse if they're forced to grow up in a society where evil people aren't held accountable. So that's another thing we have to disregard. If the consequence of not teaching true history are horrific, they end up with secret police coming to your door, abducting you, and murdering your family. So, if it causes kids a little discomfort to hear about rape farms and how the United States did that, that's the price of stopping the secret police from coming to your door. Number 6, justifications of a bully class or for a bully class. This idea that some people are above the law, they're allowed to do whatever they want, the rules don't apply to them. We revere bullies, we revere bullies in our society. It has to end because bullies don't offer anything. All they are is a disruption. There's nothing cool about that. If you got a bully disrupting a class that's teaching a medical class, you might laugh at the time, but you're not laughing when you have a heart attack and you need an expert professional to save you, and there is none because we bowed down to the desires of the bullies over the needs of our community. Got to stop doing that. Stop justifying bullies. 7, we have to stop the absurd spending on the military or the police or any other form of compliance through brutal authority or compliance through violence. Shouldn't have to spend money on that. Our taxpayer dollars. Spend your tax rather than the trillion that goes to the military. Give me $1,000. I would be happy with $1,000 a month to just continue to do this, from the government, in addition to what all my wonderful supporters do. And it's really unfair that so many people who are already with their backs against the wall have to dig down for another $20 to help keep me going. And that's what we have to change. That has to be completely inverted. This belief that, what I'm doing is somehow unworthy because it's so hard to make money on it is just a white supremacy belief. This is the most important work. This is vital work. Teaching our kids how to have healthy, productive, kind, and compassionate lives. That's the important work. And it is almost impossible to make a living trying to do this work. I'm going to continue to do it because it is the right thing to do. This is the battle of our time. I want my kids to live in a better world. I know everybody here wants the same. So thank you. Thank you for your support always. But we need to work for a society where we stop giving money to brutal, cruel, inept, impotent men and give it to the kind people out there who are advocating a message of decency. We can make that choice. We can do it. Restrictions on bodily autonomy, specifically reproductive health care. Control ideology. White supremacy is a control ideology. They are murdering our kids. They're murdering them. And this torture, forcing, it's the rape farms all over again. They want to, it's just horrific. And just this idea that our children aren't allowed to make their own choices about their bodies. And so many people believe that we have to surrender control to these cruel authorities, that do the most horrific transgressions against humanity. That has to stop. Restrictions on privacy. It's important to know that leads to the surveillance state. Remember, too, Roe versus Wade was the right to privacy. They've taken that away. And that's what is allowing, in addition to the horrors of stealing bodily autonomy, they are also stealing our privacy. Yeah, they're going to come after you. They're going to find you. They're going to track you down. So we have to fix that. We have to fight it. Number 10, normalizing a code of silence by which people aren't allowed to discuss the clear contradictions in the statements of authority figures. That's a big part of the indifference of white people today. They've been normalized to think that they have to respond a certain way to everything that's going on. We're not allowed to talk about whether the 2024 election was stolen, even as the white supremacists continue to claim there were, without any evidence, they keep recounting 2020, and we aren't allowed to do anything about 2024. Offensive. And we sit quietly, and so many people will come at me and say that I'm wrong for advocating that we should recount 2024. We have a right to ensure our votes are counted. We have a right to demand election integrity. We don't have to listen to all these lies that false authority figures and white supremacists insist are the truth of our time. 11, science denial. I mentioned that. People aren't taking their vaccines. There are epidemics going on right now. We don't listen to experts anymore because experts are a threat to white supremacists because white supremacists have no ability or talent. The whole idea that, if you watch Star Trek, you're some sort of a nerd when it advocates for a wonderful society where intelligence and reason and achievement and knowledge is celebrated. In America, we completely reject that. That's part of our white supremacy conditioning, to reject concepts like Star Trek that actually elevate science. We need to do that more. Pressure that the people must accept narratives without evidence. You've seen this. There was a lot of questions after the Pennsylvania assassination attempt. We weren't allowed to ask them. That's established. That's a white supremacy norm where they said, this is the official story. That's all you get. And you say, wait a minute now. I'm a curious person. What you're saying doesn't line up. It doesn't make sense. And you're not allowed to continue to act, and you get socially excluded if you do continue to ask those questions. I'm not talking about the absurd conspiracy theories about things that have already been disproven. That actually is white supremacy. It's white supremacists out there who are still being critical of the moon landing. It's white supremacists who are out there denying climate change. That is normalized. It's normalized for people to have this belief where they deny climate change, even though the science is clear. But for those of us who have a scientific mindset, if we start asking our own questions, all of a sudden the society comes and silences us. And that's just that tidal wave of white supremacy. We have to fight back against it. My daughter said the other day, she feels like she's cheating the system with all the things that I'm telling her to do. Because I want her to get a college degree and I want her to not have any debt. And she's going outside the system and she's getting these classes. And I'm like, you always have to cheat the system because the system is a white supremacy system. You cheat it. It pushes us into these ruts that exploit us. They want us to take on all this debt. The one time it's easy to get money is when you ask for loans, and now you're beholden. Now you've surrendered your freedom. So you have to avoid that. Take the road less traveled in the United States because the road well traveled is the road of white supremacy. This is weird. I keep getting a little, my chat keeps jumping up and down as if people are trying the right things. I see hearts every now and then. So it's a little bit of an odd day this morning on Substack, but I hope the recording will come through because we're covering a lot of good things. And I hope you all join me for the replay. Through 13, pressure that people must deny evidence that contradicts the establishment narrative. You see that when people talk to Caroline Levitt, they ask her reasonable questions, and she just responds with fury, claiming to throw people out of the room. And that indoctrinates us to not ask those questions because that's a response. But we have to keep asking and say, you contradicted yourself. Give us the answer. Keep having these questions. This is also why we don't see Democrats or Republicans come on to interview people like me on Substack, because I won't allow them to get away with their lies. So they maintain their allegiance to the establishment legacy media, which normalizes things. People have already been indoctrinated to believe that if it appears on establishment media, it's true, when that's not the case. And we need to change that too, because we need to have those hard questions. We should be putting our politicians and our representatives on the hot seat. They should have to answer for the things that they've done, especially when they make mistakes, and they make plenty of mistakes. We shouldn't be sitting here pretending as if they don't. We know they're making mistakes because nothing works. Number 14, we have to surrender our personal freedom, including freedom of thought, in favor of loyalty to an abstract, poorly defined ideology. This idea of America, love it or leave it, is a white supremacy narrative. And they force us to think that we're going to get some later reward for all the sacrifices we're making today. And that's not true. That's an empty promise. That's a lie. White supremacy is the ideology of lies. It makes us surrender our power for the benefit of the cruel few. These cruel and inept people who just sit there and giggle, who can't believe that they're getting away with this enormous theft on this enormous level. And so remember that. In addition to all the actual literal money that this regime is stealing to finance white supremacy for the next 1,000 years, as they mortgage our future and the future of our children and the future of this nation, in addition to those thefts, they are stealing from our personal autonomy, our ability to allow ourselves to think, our ability to allow ourselves to ask questions and move on and move forward, and our ability to respond. They're stealing our ability to respond. That's why we're frustrated. That's a lot of time why we're tired. Cognitive dissonance wears you out, especially if you're an intelligent person, if you're a curious person. Yep, authoritative parents make their kids afraid to admit mistakes, and that's white supremacy conditioning. So then you hide your mistakes. You hide your mistakes rather than admit you made a mistake and learn and realize that's not your identity, And that's part of their shame. It's a shame culture. They want you to believe that because you got one wrong on a math test, your identity is a fool because you got one wrong, not that you are learning because you got 99 right. That's what my daughter was talking about the other day too. She wanted to start a petition because you're not allowed to take retests if you didn't do well on a test. She's like, isn't this about learning? Are we supposed to learn? It's like, I'm a high-performing student. If I got something wrong, I want to fix it. I want that opportunity. Why should it be that the test is a one-shot deal? Okay, now this is your grade. That's it. Move on. I want to learn it. I want to make sure I have it right. Why isn't that mechanism in its place? Because they want us to feel shame. They want us to feel shame about everything. They want us to make us feel shame about economic hardship, even though they create a system where it's impossible to succeed. Yesterday I was talking about Elizabeth Raven and she in Venezuela. And she said, yes, my country has problems. Everybody admits that. But Venezuela is not responsible for its problems because the United States goes to Venezuela and kidnaps their duly elected leader. And they do that all the time in South America. And then the United States starts talking about third world countries, which is white supremacy language once again. They want to create this camouflage as if, oh, these people are suffering. We're in there to help. When really their only ambition is to go in and exploit and destroy. And our military stops free market capitalism because Venezuela, by rights, has more oil than anything else. And, on this side of the world, they should be the richest by rights. They should be the richest nation on this side of the world. But the United States prevents them from selling their oil. They're selling their own research the way that they would want. The United States prevents that. It's cruelty. Arturo Dominguez was writing about the United States embargoes on Cuba and how Cuba actually came up with a potentially superior vaccine to COVID because the United States was not helping them. And this was even during the Biden administration doing this. So Democrats are just as complicit. Democrats, too, maintain the system of white supremacy. This is a big problem, folks. It is a big problem. We have to completely change the cultural mind of this society. And but I'm telling you, once you start seeing it, and once you see that people that are abusing us are inept, they're weak, they are standing in front of a house of cards, it just takes a stiff wind of opposition to blow it all down. Once you recognize that, you will feel better. It'll first start in your home as you have better relationships with your kids and your spouse and your friends, and everything in your life will be better. You'll be more effective at your job, even though that'll probably cause problems because you'll have people above you who are inept, because white supremacy allows for the rise of inept people who don't have any merit. And that's why wealth is evil, because all the wealth has been accumulated among the worst people in our society. Epstein files prove that, pretty definitive proof. These people are awful. All right. I did that. Surrendering freedom of thought. We have to take back our freedom of thought. Be willing to deny, be willing to have our own points of view. Yeah, I see Blue Heart, I see a comment. So yeah, please put in your comments, please hit the likes. I hope it gets recorded okay, and I hope you guys all come back for the replay if you weren't able. I hope you leave your comments there. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. You can listen to the replay and treat it as if it's alive. A lot of people do that, where I say something and hit pause, go down and write a comment in regard to what I said. I'll come and read it later. I promise to read it later. Your comments are very helpful. And they help me in this ongoing process because we're always learning. And then what do I have here? 15. Another white supremacy lie is perceiving children as property. Farmers do this. I grew up in a farm in a conservative area. And, the farmers, because their way of life is ineffective and inefficient, they need basically slave labor in order for it to continue. I've seen kids endure horrible accidents because 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds are running tractors. They're running things that they shouldn't. Lisa says, do awful people rise to power or does power make awful people? I think, Lisa, we have to view it in the context of the fact that we live in a white supremacy society. So it's hard to make a generalization about people, because we have to dismantle the system of white supremacy. Our current American system rewards evil people without question. I think it is possible to create a mechanism, a new constitution that would reward decent people. I think that's possible. I think we do have to have a mechanism for people to have power for a while and then go away from it. People have to remember that they're mortal, and we have to maintain accountability. Where, the best system would be, and I keep saying, before any Democrat votes to fund ICE, they should spend a week in an ICE detainment center, see what it's like. And we don't have that accountability. We should have our representatives living as the least of us, or the people that are the most oppressed live. Representatives should get the minimum of what's available. They should get minimum wage. They should have no access to health care. And I bet they would start changing it, if they were held to that standard of accountability. I think power, has a corrupting influence. I think curiosity and reason and being humble can fix that. And I think a large part of our problem, I don't trust myself, honestly, to have power. I would trust my kids. I would prefer to elevate women, particularly Black women who have been most oppressed by our white supremacy culture. I think they're the most capable of handling and understanding the agony. They've endured the agony already. So they've already experienced the accountability. It's time to give them power. The problem is we keep giving power to people who have never experienced accountability That's a great question. That's a good philosophical concept. Thanks. Maybe it was good that the chats were off because I wouldn't have got through my whole list. But that was a wonderful question, and let's keep talking about it. I'm not saying that's the definitive answer either. Yeah, farming life creates these cruel systems because it's based on white supremacy. You see this too. Parents in schools, they advocate, well, I want to have control over what teachers present to my kids. But really what they're trying to do, that sounds good in theory, but we also have to have a conversation about what the kids deserve to hear. Because a lot of kids are abused by their parents. The most dangerous, the two most dangerous men in the life of any woman, the two most dangerous, her father and her partner. And we don't talk about that enough either. And it's heartbreaking because that's the reality of our patriarchal, cruel white supremacy culture. And we need to advocate for children too. If children are being abused at home, they should be able to go to school and have that be a resource to have the abuse end. But the way abuse works is it makes you so you don't think you could even the other things in life aren't for you. I remember thinking that a lot growing up. Being able to complain that wasn't for me. I'll just be a good soldier and just endure these blows because of all the love I feel for the authority figures who are abusing me. This cruelty is, and this is why too we have this system of like years later people recognize something was abuse. It's hard in the moment when you're first beaten or raped or mistreated by somebody you thought was on your side. In that moment, you don't fully understand what happened to you, and you deny that you what has happened to you because you don't want to think of yourself as a survivor of something. And you have to give yourself permission to understand we've all been the victims of this white supremacist capitalist system that exploits us. It lies to us. It oppresses us. It creates an evil working class that does nothing but tell us that we are responsible for all the crimes committed against us. We're innocent of that. Decent people haven't done all these things. It's all the evil people in power and control who have committed all the crimes. It's not us. And it's not easy to face that realization. You have to recognize you have to say goodbye to parents and authority figures and institutions you've admired. You have to hold them accountable, but you have to protect yourself first, second, and third. Yep. Well, I mean, yeah, that is a fascist brainwash group. But beyond that, too, the entire United States has been brainwashed to normalize this. We're all complicit to some extent in allowing this. All the way back to school, making kids say the Pledge of Allegiance is part of it. All the way things where we don't teach the true history of our country. That created this fascist brainwash movement. We have to have a system that advocates for intelligence and for reason and for science. And these like the people who try to undercut our children's ability to learn science because they say, well, we have the right to religious freedom. And it's like, yeah, you can do that, but that doesn't mean that you have the right to stop my child from learning science or your child for that matter. Your child does deserve a right. But the more we teach our kids about curiosity and the scientific method and using their own senses and having faith in their own beliefs and their perception of what happened to them, that's how we defeat white supremacy. And this entire model is created, to allow evil to proliferate. I had to leave the country for 10 years in order to help uh, detoxify myself, to get those ideas out of my mind, to stop responding in a way that enabled white supremacy instinctively. That's what they've created. And we all have to just look into it. I'm not accusing people of something awful. What I'm saying is against your will and without your consent, you have been trained to enable this cruel system. That's just simply the fact of it. And you can see it most prominently in the fact that people are indifferent. Liam Ramos was a 5-year-old kid that ICE abducted and tortured in their detainment center until he was finally released. And people were indifferent about it. They were just like, well, that's not my issue. And there are still kids in these detainment centers. Your tax dollars are funding concentration camps. We don't have any assurance that the people, first, that they did anything wrong. We don't have any assurance that these people are not being raped and murdered and abused and tortured. And we're funding it. And our indifference is part of that white supremacy conditioning. We have to overcome that. We have to teach our kids to do better. You can't love what you fear. Yeah, fear is a fear-driven ideology. And yeah, it's worthless. Child trafficking billionaires also see children as property. And it's the same as these farmers who, they have all these kids just so that they can do the work in the farm because they can't pay anybody. There's a lot of children as slavery in the United States. I saw a lot of farm kids who came to work. They came to school exhausted and just slept all day because they had to go work a 15-hour day. Awful. 16. Establishing a general social viewpoint of indifference. This is what white supremacy does. It establishes a general social viewpoint of indifference so that otherwise good people blind themselves to the horrors of white supremacy. That actually neatly goes back to number one. We have to acknowledge that white supremacy exists. We have to acknowledge that it is a toxic strain and a false influence in our society. It's killing us. It allows evil people to take control and avoid accountability. It's why we can't make enough money to survive. It's why we always recriminate ourselves for not doing enough. We get into this grind culture where we sacrifice our health and our bodies, even though there's never any chance of us getting ahead. The American dream is a lie. You can't work hard and become wealthy in this country because only the wealthy white supremacists are allowed to inherit and hand down their wealth. They steal from us, they steal our taxes, and then they give it to people like the guy running. They give it to the bankers whose businesses fail, because billionaires are never allowed to fail. Like if Tesla finally became insolvent, you'd see them get $30 billion or $1 trillion from the government, maybe, because for whatever reason, they'd have some absurd white supremacy justification for that. I want to see it fail. I want to see it completely go under, because if they can't run a business that's successful, they don't deserve to get our taxpayer money. Give our taxpayer money to people. Let's use it to support education and healthcare. Let's stop funding a violent force that it poses itself. It causes all kinds of conflict and violence throughout the world. That disrupts Venezuela from being able to sell their own oil. We have a force that, we topple duly elected regimes in South America, creating an immigrant crisis. And then they use that immigrant crisis to create a secret police force to go after dissidents like me eventually. So we just have to understand the true mechanism at work. And keep listening to Ellie Leonard and understanding what's happening in these Epstein files, but also understand that is a smaller part of a bigger issue, that we have to completely recalibrate our cultural identity. We have to protect our own kids, because if you allow evil people to indoctrinate your kids with their lies, and of course they get up there and they present themselves, oh, I'm this billionaire, I have all these things. Listen to me and you can be like me. And it's a lie, because if you listen to them, they will make you their servant, and that's it. They will not let you rise to their level. The only way we're getting there is to go outside, cheat the system, and topple the unjust and cruel men who are exploiting us and abusing us. So I think that's about it for today. I got a couple of things to do. I'll be talking with Will Fullwood 40 minutes from now. Will Fullwood and I have a great guest. I'm looking forward to that. Later this afternoon, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, I'm interviewing a Wisconsin congressional candidate, Chris Armstrong. He's running for the district currently that is occupied by Tom Tiffany. I'll be interviewing him and talking to him about these things. Thank you guys so much for being here. I wish it would have been easier with the comments, but I hope. Thanks for your wonderful thoughts. Let me look at the thing. Yeah, you cannot love what you fear, and you do not fear what you love. Yes, love is the answer to this. Love is the answer. Martin Luther King Jr. said it too. Thank you, Stephanie. I hope this is helpful. I hope you feel empowered, because the reality is, now the comments are coming in. The reality is that the white supremacy mind virus is weak and it's cowardly, and it knows that if it's exposed, it crumbles into dust. It knows that, and it depends on no resistance. And we've been seeing that with these silver spoon Democrats, the Schumers and the Jeffries of the world, who have always had things easy and don't know that you just have to stand up to a bully to push them back down, to make them disappear. They've never had to do that. Yeah, of course the chat works now, but thank you. I can take a second more. I can sit around for a few more minutes if the chat is working now, and take some questions. But it was actually, like I said, maybe that's serendipity, because I wanted to get through that list. I think there's a lot of good actionable material on that list. But I really do want all of you guys, teach your kids, have these conversations with your kids, empower your kids to not be victimized by the grooming and the indoctrination of white supremacy. We have to stop our kids from being infected with this horrible way of thinking that has infected the rest of us. It's not easy either, because we've lived with it. I've lived with it for 50 years, and it becomes harder and harder to remove an idea that you've lived with for a long time. I compared it like the tartar on your teeth. It's not part of you. When you go into the dentist and they scrape all that off, you don't even see it because it seems like it's part of your teeth. But when you scrape it off, you realize, oh, now I'm clean. Now this is what I truly am. And that's what we have to do with white supremacy too. What does Ashley say? Oh, yes. Well, we'll have to do that sometime, Ashley. Yeah, I would love to do that. Lately, I've been up against the wall. There's been so much stuff to do, and I've been tired. And like I said, take a nap if you have the opportunity. Set an alarm. Yesterday, I took a nap for 45 minutes, and it changed a lot. But yeah, we're working hard, but people are listening, and that's take power in that because we do know. See, a year ago, we didn't know. Maybe I mean, some people did. A lot of people did know, but now people are willing to listen. I guess that's the way to put it. People are willing to listen now to change. Demand universal health care. Demand a government that works for you. Demand that people of merit are rewarded. And, because white supremacists, they get you see it. I see it in high school. I see it in the middle school basketball games my kids play. They go to some towns and they hire refs to cheat. They hire refs to cheat. You can see it. It's clear, you know? And it's just that white supremacists will not get into a contest they don't intend to cheat. And that's why I'm fairly certain the 2024 election was rigged because white supremacists, again, they're too afraid of losing. They will not submit to a fair contest because it exposes them as the frauds that they are when they lose. It exposes them. And that's their weakness. And we just have to stand up for that. We just have to stand up for that. Start demanding it. They will try to attack you if you ask for a question. You have every right to ask for a follow-up question. Say, wait a minute, your story doesn't make sense. Let me get the data clear. Go into discovery is what the legal term is. Go and make them answer. Make them answer for themselves. Do it. Yeah, take naps, people. Oh my God. And the other thing, what I did with Stephanie Wilson the other day, we were just dancing and we were trying to laugh when things get too hard. Push aside the fear. That fear just wears you out. That fear wears you out. Push aside the fear. Laugh about things. Move. That makes you remember your power. Go out for a walk. Um, you'll feel better. Get away from the screens. The doom scrolling hurts you. That's part of white supremacy. It's designed to indoctrinate and control you, making you this zombie, and all you're seeing is bad news, bad news, bad news. And you absorb a lot more of that stuff, even if you don't think you sit there and read it all. You absorb it. So get away from that. Give yourself time to rest. Give yourself time to demand yourself. You're beautiful. You're a beautiful human being. You don't deserve to be treated the way the United States culture of white supremacy has treated you. You don't have to, it's not right that you have to suffer so much. It's not right that it's so hard. It's not right that we have to be afraid about getting health care. That doctors just see us as a means to make themselves rich and not as somebody in pain that needs to be helped. We need to change that. Yeah, I believe Kamala won, and I believe the Democrats and the Republicans both need to be held accountable. I think there is a lot of people that need to go to jail for rigging the last election, and it's on both sides. I think there's a lot of consultants in the Democratic Party who tell lies, who sabotage the party. People like James Carville. I feel he is a white supremacist. Some of his statements are blatantly and openly racist. He told Obama to go take a toke off a crack pipe, and the Democrats are still paying him. And within the Democratic Party, we have people that are sabotaging our elections who would prefer to have a fascist take power because they're getting more donor money from the same people that are in the Epstein files. I'll tell you that there's a lot of Democrats who did not want a prosecutor who had taken child traffickers to court. They did not want that in the office of the president. They wanted somebody that they could control. And that's what they got. And that's what they had because there's people they don't allow to win primaries either, and all this is part of that white supremacy model. And like I said, it's everybody. We are all indoctrinated with it. We try to shake it off. There are people of empathy who know that there is something wrong and they work this problem and they react and they respond. But we need to come collectively together and combine our power and put white supremacy to rest for once and for all. We have to obliterate it. We have to protect our children so our children are not indoctrinated with this mind virus. It's sad, though, too, because I've deliberately taught my children to be multicultural, and I've done the opposite of everything American society tells you to do with your kids. And the people I meet, they're like, your kids are so kind, and they're so well, and they're such high achievers. How did you do it? And then I said, I recognize that the United States is a white supremacy culture. I rejected the white supremacy culture. I empowered my children to reject it. And then people say, well, that can't be it. But now, because, my eldest is 15. Now people are starting to listen. And that brings me hope. It should bring all of you hope as well. Once we know the task, it's a big task, but we've identified it. We know what the problem is. We can put aside our frustration. That's just wasted energy. Rest when you need to. Fight productively when you can. And we'll win. Because the human heart is going to prevail. And we're not going to let, yes, thank you, Stephanie. Please be in the fight. Please keep coming back. I should say it. I mean, yeah, if you can afford to become a paid supporter of this, my back's against the wall, but I know all of your backs are against the wall too. But anybody is welcome. Please do it. This is my Rise Together. I'm also on I'd Rather Be Writing. Keep coming back. All my talks are free. All my content is free. I want you, most of all, I want you to come back. We'll keep talking. We'll keep empowering ourselves. We'll keep fortifying ourselves. We'll keep finding new tactics for attacking white supremacy. We are going to obliterate white supremacy. We're going to protect our kids. Yeah, rest when you need to. Yep, and always speak the truth. Always speak the truth. You know what's true. The truth that's in your heart. Be kind. Be kind every day. That's as basic as it is. Don't endure uncharitable beliefs that make you an enabler of abuse. If we get rid of that, the abuse will go away. So that's it for today. Well, thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that. That's a good place to end. I'm going to take a little bit of a rest. Then I'll be back in 30 minutes to talk to Will Fullwood. Again, I love you all. You all deserve more than what we have today. But together, if we work and we support each other, we will all rise together. That's our objective. We'll create a better world for our kids. Thank you so much. You empower me. You make me feel better. I come to these lacking energy sometimes and I leave totally enthusiastic. So I appreciate all of you. Keep coming back. Let's keep doing the hard work. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for your wonderful comments. Keep calling me out. Keep holding me accountable. Again, later today, too, I'm talking with that congressional candidate at 2 Central Standard Time. Please come for that. We can influence our candidates. We can choose our representatives. We can change our culture. We can do it. We're going to win. We're going to rise together. Thanks all.